Welcome to Goobertown Hobbies. My name is Brent. Today we're painting a Blood Angels army. Well, I'm painting 3 units and 7 other artists are painting the rest. This is going to be a tutorial for painting Blood Angel Space Marines, and we're also going to talk about what it's like to work as part of a team of painters. Oh yeah, and the whole army is part of a charity raffle, so stay tuned for that. These are the same Marines that I was working on as part of the endurance painting competition that I did with Miniac and Midwinter Minis. In that video, I worked for 29 hours straight painting these Marines. 2 units of Primaris Intercessors and 1 unit of Blood Angels Tactical Marines. After the marathon session and a few days of overtime, I wound up with a look that I really like. It's great for Blood Angels, and I think the strategies can apply equally well to other colors of power armor. Since I'm painting these models for somebody else, I want them to look great, but since I'm painting 30 of them, I want to be efficient. The good news is I think I was able to find that Goldilocks zone. So after I built and primed the models, I covered them with GW Mephiston Red. Since this army was a team project, we decided that we would all use the same red colors so that the army would look uniform. Mephiston Red was our base color, and Blood Red from Coat to Arms was our layer color. Coat to Arms still makes a lot of the colors from an earlier incarnation of the GW paint line, and this Blood Red is strong with nostalgia. I sprayed Blood Red onto the models from above. The next step is where the airbrush really comes in handy though. I'm going to make some smooth and dramatic shadows. I could have used straight black ink, but instead I loaded up with Payne's Gray. Payne's Gray is a blue-black color that's perfect for this kind of thing. I'm generally shooting from below and aiming for armpits and in between the legs and anywhere else that I think would look cool. These are big beefy Marines and they definitely cast a shadow. Bold black shadows were some of the guiding principles that our team was given to make sure that our army matched up nicely and looked awesome. These dark shadows are one of the defining features of this paint scheme, and I really love the way that they look. Next up, I painted the bases green. This is just so the models look a bit better for the camera. These tiny bases are temporary. The whole army is going to get put on matching bases to unify them later in the process. When I use temporary bases like this, I just put a dot of super glue on the left foot so that it's easy to pop the models off later. These Marines are part of 3 different 10-man squads. 1 with black knee pads, 1 with blue, and 1 with yellow. I started those markings early so that I wouldn't make any embarrassing mistakes or switcheroos. Squad sergeants get the traditional black shoulder pads. We're doing our best to follow the Blood Angels Codex on this sort of thing. Next, bolters, armor joints, and some of their extra bits of flair got painted black. After black, I started working with gunmetal steel color. To stay efficient, I tried to hit all the backpacks, then all the helmets, and then all the guns, and so on and so forth. I used medium brown for some straps, and a light brown for bits of cloth and parchment. After this, I gave everything a gloss varnish. This protects all the work that we've already done, and it gives a glossy surface that's great for washes and for decals. I used a black wash on the steel bits, Army Painter Dark Tone. Then, with a small brush, I went in and pinwashed all of the lines in the armor. Primaris Marines especially seem like they were designed to be painted easily. All of these indents in the armor scream out for a wash. I could have done an all-over wash, but that's a bit messy. I really like the effect of placing the black in these recesses and nowhere else. There are some places on these models where a bit of black wash does wonders. The inside rim of the shoulder pads and the side of the helmet crest are 2 of the most important. With gloss varnish and a little bit of practice, you should be able to get the wash to settle nicely into those creases and right angles. I actually think this pinwashing or blacklining process is the most critical step for making the Marines look clean and professional. This step has a lot of impact on the final product, so I'm willing to spend the extra time. It's also very useful to darken the area around the lenses on the helmet. Darkening the eye sockets like this will make the lenses look awesome. Also, when the wash dries, the finish of the surface will change from gloss to matte, and it'll be easier to paint on those lenses. For the lenses, I used Scorpy Green. I love this color, and it works great for Blood Angels. Next are the decals. A winged blood drop goes on the left shoulder. and for this company, a single yellow blood drop goes on the right shoulder. I used my hobby knife to cut the decals out as closely to the design as I could. This guards against any of the clear plastic going translucent and ruining the effect. Here's a test model where I didn't cut away enough of the clear plastic. You can see that it went a bit translucent, and that's not what we're going for. The squad of tactical marines had blue knee pads with a white skull, marking them as veterans. One of the Primaris squads was a yellow knee pad with a red blood drop, and the other was a black knee pad with that same red blood drop. For the yellow knee pads, I was able to use an inkjet printer to make some custom red blood drop decals. That inkjet printer red didn't work over the black though, so for that squad I freehanded the blood drops onto the knee pads, and that was actually pretty easy to do. After the decals, I gave the models a satin varnish to seal everything in. Then I came back for a round of highlighting. I mixed the blood red color with just a bit of flesh tone to get a nice highlight color. Then I went around and hit the most obvious edges, shoulder pads, a few corners on the details of the helmets, and a few of the prominent edges on the backpacks. To maintain the illusion of shadow, I didn't highlight anything on the model much below the shoulder pads. In the heavy metal painting style, it's the edge highlighting that's the most time consuming and is also the most important for making the models look awesome. In this tutorial, edge highlighting is a nice touch, but it's really the time that we spent shading and pinwashing that make these models great. I found that just one round of edge highlighting was plenty for these minis. By this point, the intercessors are looking pretty good. The design on these models is clean and simple. In the context of this army, the Primaris Marines are fresh reinforcements with factory new armor. On the other hand, the squad of tactical marines are veterans who've been through dozens of battles. For the tactical marines, I roughed up their armor with a bit of sponge weathering. I loaded up a sponge with black and a sponge with silver, and I went through and scuffed up that red armor. Over the years, they've been hit with debris, they've slid into cover, they've been punched by orcs, and they've scuffed up the hems of their metal pants. A sponge of black or dark brown, followed by a layer of steel, normally does a good job of selling the effect of well-worn armor. Overlapping the decals a little bit helps to establish that those squad markings were part of the in-universe paint job. Those old tactical marines also have a ton of knickknacks. Blood insignia, vials of blood, blood gems, oath papers, all that stuff. These marines have been around for a while and they've collected some flair. I'm not doing anything too fancy with any of these, I'm just picking some logical colors and getting them filled in. The theme of the whole army is old meets new. The first detachment is led by Lord Dante, and it's composed of grizzled survivors from a Tyranid invasion, elites and hardened veterans. This unit of tactical marines is constituted from the battered remnants of several squads, and they're ready to step back into the fight. Hope is not lost though. Reinforcements have arrived. Primaris Marines led by Chief Librarian Mephiston. Finally, I was ready to declare victory on these 3 squads. I took a ton of glamour shots and I got ready to send them off. Each unit is constituted as a 10-man squad, but I modeled one figure in each squad to be a bit edgy so they could proxy as a sergeant. That way, the eventual owner of this army could play with twice as many 5-man squads, if that's what they wanted to do. 10 Primaris got bolt rifles, and 10 got stalker rifles. The rules are ever changing, but I think both types of guns look cool. Also, 1 in 5 of these models have underslung grenade launchers. For the tactical squad, there's a flamer and a missile launcher. Total classics. Whether you love them or hate them, Space Marines are a pillar of our hobby, and it never hurts to get some more experience painting them. For this paint job, I think the 2 most important steps were airbrushing in some dramatic shadows with that Payne's Gray ink, and then pinwashing the details in the armor. If those 2 steps go well, I think the finished Marines have a great shot at looking sweet. I was pretty happy with the efficiency of this paint scheme. This project took a few long days, but in the end I was able to contribute 30 nice looking Marines to the army. After I had taken a ton of pictures, I was finally ready to pack these up and send them off. Goodbyes are never easy, but these Marines were going to a better place. 8 different artists worked on this project, and when all those minis convened, they were all put on matching bases. Let's take a look at the army. I think it's remarkably cohesive, especially considering how many people worked on this. The matching bases help a ton, and it also helps that we all used the same shades of red. The overall design of the army was another reason why it came together as well as it did. There's a ton of variety in the army list, so no two artists were working on the same type of unit. Primaris infiltrators should look different from tactical marines, which should look different from scouts. The characters should be distinct. The Sanguinary Guard are supposed to be gold, and the Death Company are supposed to be black. The only duplicate unit in the whole army were the 2 squads of Primaris Intercessors, and since I did both of them, everything fits together quite nicely. Jawa Balls Chris is one of the original YouTube painters, and he's the architect of this list and this paint scheme, and I think it's great. The army has a blend of classic models and sweet new models. Most of the minis were painted by true professionals. I'm an amateur, but I painted the troops to a standard that I'm quite happy with. Somebody is gonna end up with a really cool army. A raffle is currently live for this army through the Nova Open Charitable Foundation. Proceeds go towards the Breast Cancer Research Foundation. I'm told that they'll pack the army up in premium battle foam and ship to wherever the winner happens to live. Sadly, the Nova Open Convention had to be cancelled this year along with everything else, but the Charity Raffle is still very much alive. The NOCF raffle happens every year at the end of summer, and this year ticket sales end September 6th. I'm not allowed to buy raffle tickets for this army, but there are lots of other items that look great. Captain Lysander by Vince Venturella? Yes. Titan by Duncan Rhodes? Yes. Dave Taylor Ultramarines? Yes. Jeff Robinson In Control Memorial Titan by Israel Sanchez? Oh yeah. Now, it's not a competition, but I'm hoping that the Blood Angels army sells a lot of tickets and raises a bunch of money. This army is mildly internet famous, and it could be yours. Imagine the possibilities. There are dozens of incredible models and armies being raffled off. Go check the postings and remember to play responsibly. Don't play too responsibly though. These raffles are supporting great causes, like the Breast Cancer Research Foundation, Doctors Without Borders, and the Fisher House Foundation. If you missed the raffle this year, be on the lookout for it next summer. The drawing is normally at the end of August or beginning of September. There are tons of gaming charities going on year-round, but this is always a fun one. Okay, well I guess that's it for today. Thanks so much for watching.